I'm very concerned right now. There are not very many. Because what's happening is those who used to make income, we're seeing patterns of desperation starting to occur where they're becoming increasingly systemic, more rules-driven. They're starting to treat distributors like their employees, like they're their army. And it's my way, the highway, my million, the first, make your first million my way, the second million your way, becoming more and more rules-driven and systems-driven and structure-driven. And I'll take you to the next thought process and answer your question. Most alarming percentage, 99.5 of those attracted to this profession have a proclivity. That's a natural negative tendency to avoid structure. The word system raises hair up on the back of their neck.
I wonder why.
Isn't it wonderful? They might not come without it. But we tell them, oh, here's a place for time freedom, financial freedom, your business. And 2 weeks later, what do we introduce to them?
The system.
The system. And they got to stick to the system. They need to follow the system. And this is the system. And what happens is when that system doesn't work, if they stay around long enough, what gets created? Another one. Right. And that one doesn't work. So what do?
Behave
create
badly.
Another one. And ad nauseum, we have for a decade been creating systems, and they're not working because they're an absolute violation of the thought processes of people. Let me share what a leader would do, and then you can tell me how many you know. You can tell me how many you know.
I think I do.
Okay? If we know that thought processes, if we understand the science of thought, we know they're intrinsic, extrinsic, systemic thought. Mathematically, we know intrinsic is higher, extrinsic next, systemic is last. It's the lowest mathematical calculation for a thought, but it's almost always inversed. System first, these are the benefits, let's hope the people can do it. What comes out the bottom of the funnel. If we turn the funnel around and we said, I want you to fall in love with people. I want to show you how to make friends with everyone. Your life will be just so exciting to have friends. I want to show you how to have authentic and genuine conversations with people that will lead someone to your business. Would you like to know how to do that? When you do that and you find somebody who needs your product, our product, if I'm teaching you this, and our business, here are the support tools. We used to call this a system. Here are the support tools. See the languaging? Here are the support tools to assist you in transitioning them. Because everything you're going to do to that point is just deciding whether they want to be with you or you want them to be in your business. And your business really starts when they begin the process. You're with me?
I'm here.
How many leaders are here? You tell me.
I'm the president of this organization. I really, for political reasons, can't really say.
But you don't put me on the hot seat.
That's why I grabbed the mic.
Can we assume that in the question there is somewhat of an implicit comment of, wouldn't it be great if? Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could teach, number one, let's honor people, let's create authentic conversations, and here are the support tools to assist you. Don't use this as an excuse not to talk about the business, but get the walls down, find the needs, and then serve them.
My frustration would be is how could something this good be so dysfunctional?
Repeat the question.
If I may answer his question, then we'll come to your question.
Okay.
Would that be okay?
Yeah. Just repeat his question if you could.
Oh, I'll repeat his question. How could something this good be this dysfunctional? I'll tell you a brief story. For 10 years, I took a hiatus and wrote and directed films. Had an opportunity to work with Eric Stilson, who produced the infomercial for the Health Writer. Remember the Health Writer? Yeah. Does anybody have one of those? I call them shirt and tie hangers, Okay? Now, Eric was a brilliant producer. Prior to the production of the Health Writer infomercial, infomercials in their purest sense were self-funding advertising campaigns to prepare a product for retail distribution. Everybody got that model? I don't have $1 billion to go launch this product, so I'm going to do a really good infomercial. We'll get kind of a viral thing going here, and pretty soon retailers are going to want it. Then I can introduce it to the store and get a SKU without a lot of expense. That was the original plan for an infomercial. Eric and Gary Smith, bless their hearts, they broke the mold. because he did such an amazing infomercial. Beautiful film, dancing girls, cowboys, I mean, the whole thing. It sold off the shelves. They didn't just break even. They made a 7-to-1 profit. That became the benchmark. And what did it bring? A whole flood of get-rich-quick schemers with crazy little products to sell online, make them sound better than they are, to try to get multiple earnings on something that was supposed to be designed as a break-even. And all of a sudden, with so many in the marketplace, the cost of airtime went up, which made it harder and harder. And guess what? Out of 100, 1 was successful, 2 made money, and the rest were failures. This sounds familiar, doesn't it? Well, they violated the very reason for it. Beautiful part of this marketplace. At its very core and foundation is a quality product that brings value to people, that when someone uses it, and it can be, we saw one last night that was, people get excited about it. That's one form of excitement. Another may be a health product someone takes. It might be another product that someone takes. Pets, working with pets and organic stuff for pets. Whatever it is, there is a value that causes me to want to tell other people. And all of a sudden, we got the power brokers into this process. And the power brokers started thinking about the money and not the people. And not about the process. And boy, I'm going to sound terrible. I love the business and I love some of these people. But there are a handful that have been really scary folks. Just scary folks. Who have come in and recruited and recruited and recruited. And at the expense of people's lives, selling dreams that were poison and crushing marriages, crushing relationships, leaving people bankrupt and beat up. The price I think they'll pay, I happen to believe in the hereafter. I don't know that I would want to have to face the hereafter having spent my life doing that to people. I don't know there's anybody here that ever has done that. From the understanding I have of this, I feel comfortable speaking this candidly in this room.
Yes, David, you were talking about that mirror image on that.
Mirror neuron? Mm-hmm.
Not having that mirror available. How much research have they done on that? Again, there's only 54 million of us in the U.S. that have visual acuity problems. Mm-hmm. Do you know what they've done on that, or has someone taken that on as part of that for visualization? Because I always tell people, they say, well, you can't see, but I say, I've never lost my vision. Mm-hmm. And have they done any research into that part of it?
Dan Goldman had probably the best work in a book called Social Intelligence. Might be a great one to pick up. It's one of my favorite books. Og Mandino in 1962 was a precursor to this without the science. He gave us a whole list that turned out to be accurate. I'll read it to you. Okay. How will I confront each with whom I meet? If you just try this next week. It's kind of fun. He said, in only one way, in silence and to myself, I will address him and say, I love you. Silence to myself. I'll say, I love you. What it does is it brings into congruence all the facial muscles, body, everything is now congruent. And he goes on to say, though spoken in silence, these words will shine in my eyes. You may not see that. Unwrinkle my brow. You may not see that. Although you've got high levels of intuition, and you know this too. Bring a smile to my lips and echo in my voice. I think those, and his heart will be opened. That means the wall comes down in current terms. And who is there who will say nay to my goods when his heart feels my love? Now, I met with you this morning. I felt it.
I'm trying to figure out how to integrate training someone, because are you saying they're not at all experiencing a fear response?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so how do you integrate
the primary
and flow?
foundational challenge that makes them feel icky isn't fear.
Okay.
That's intuition.
Okay.
Now, they still have to get out of their shell, right?
Okay.
They still have to become comfortable in their own skin with themselves. And that takes some very special training.
Okay.
I skip past it so quickly, I'll emphasize it again,
Thank
if I
you.
may. Okay?
Okay, please.
And may I I'll just spend a moment and tell you what brought this all to a head. I was speaking in Chicago. It was about 7-8 years ago. That was 1992, 2002, 2003. And I was going to speak to a group of about 700 people, and I knew they had self-esteem challenges. They had this kind of nervousness. And so I was seeking to get an answer. And I had a very vivid dream that just brought it all together for me. I'll share it with you if I may. Because in the dream, I was walking down a path with a sack over my right shoulder, a white muslin sack. It weighed about 200 pounds. It's just heavy to drag. There's a man approaching me. If I may use you, would that be okay? What's your first name? Fred. So Fred's approaching me, and I know I need to connect with him. I want to. And I know all the principles. So I'm going through the principles of intrinsic validation. You know, first you do this, second you do this, you know, to build this relationship. And this voice says, let go of the sack. That was nice. But just as soon as I did, it said, turn around and face the sack. So I turned around to face the sack, which I did not want to do. I knew it was in this sack. And it said, empty the sack. So I reluctantly emptied the sack, and it was, in dreams, things are kind of surreal. It was a pile of silver orbs with spikes on them. Okay? And I was asked to pick up the most painful of all of them. And it was one I'd been avoiding for 52 years. It happened in Chicago. My dad was going to school. My mom was working in a high-rise. She grew up on a farm. They didn't have plumbing till after they were married. I mean, this is a really strange place for them. I pick up this orb, and I'm holding it, and I'm reflecting on that. My father's going to school in the day, working almost all night, 2 or 3 hours of sleep. Mom's just overwhelmed. And there's this couple who couldn't have children, who befriended our family. And they agreed to take my sister and I on all kinds of special outings. Christmas time, Santa Claus came to our house, to our studio apartment with Murphy beds and a popcorn popper that we used to cook our food. We always had nice new clothes. This was a godsend to my parents, except for they were pedophiles. See why I'm holding this? And that's when the voice said, David, is anybody else suffering from a similar wound? It's the first time I went, of course. Then engrave this on your heart. And I did, and it slid right in. And I immediately felt this sense of peace. Now pick up the next one. Well, I had quite a pile. You know, in 1988 and 89, the real estate market collapsed in Southern California. We lost millions. I spent the next 10 years paying back $1 million in debt. That was a difficult time. Great principles. Grateful in retrospect for the experience, would not want to have it again.
Really?
Pick it up. Is anyone else suffering from a similar wound? If we could raise hands, which I will not ask you to do, how many people are suffering from a similar wound? They're all over. Except we're all pretending we're okay, so we don't have the conversation, right? Engrave it on your heart. When I got done, I felt so whole, so complete. To engrave on your heart means character. And I said to you a moment ago, our character, yours, has been forged in the furnace of adversity. Would you agree with that? I don't know anybody who hasn't. Can you take it back? Do you know what pain feels like? If you remember this and show up to listen for someone, you'll hear things nobody else will hear. And questions will come to your mind that no one else would think to ask, born of your own experience. And so we ask those, and someone feels understood. You see, we become safe by listening. How many network marketers are safe? How many are safe? We're not safe. I mean, they pull out the silver crosses and daggers the instant we walk in the room. Whoa! That's not the law of attraction. When we show up safe listening, a person's mirror neurons read that as safe. That is the physiological reality of the law of attraction. When we can think of a question, we don't even need to tell them our experience. But if we can ask they don't care about ours. They just want to know that we understand theirs. And the question allows us to demonstrate that we understand theirs, and a person feels understood. Greatest gift we could give a human being is to feel understood in a world where everybody's in it for themselves, right? Not everyone. But we're all kind of preoccupied with our stuff, are we not? We actually understand them. We care enough about them for that wall to come down. This was a great lesson to discover, because all the literature supports it. If you really are listening for it, you go back to Dale Carnegie, listen to Mandino. They've all been telling us to listen. We just stopped. We started telling. We started throwing up. We started being strategic. We started being systemic. We forgot the greatest secret of success in all ventures, the greatest weapon from which no one can defend, actually caring enough to listen. And when a distributor does this piece, guess what happens to their fear? Because the fear is all about me. If you want to help someone let go of fear, you teach them how to focus on another person. That's the only secret. Any other way, that and take action, focus on another person, totally embracing their genius, being real, genuine, and authentic, caring, mitigates fear. Their intuitive sense. He said, the question was, why are people feeling icky? Can you say a little bit more about the icky feeling that they're having? If I've got highly antennae up, my intuitive antennae up, and I'm stepping in, but at the same time I've got my antennae, which I don't even know I have until they get it measured and discover, I'm just walking in nervous, uncomfortable, some of the basic fear issues that are present, and I'm doing my strategic thing. Do you keep your options open for other passive sources of income? And I'm saying with such awkwardness that I can feel this person just shut down, and it offends my own sensitivity that I just offended someone's space. Yeah. It's the first time I get to experience my own empathy stepping on someone else's path, and my intuition, my inner sense of knowing. That's what creates it. We become aware of our own ineptness from the awkwardness of the conversation. I love what you said. Everybody hear what he said? No. Okay, I'll repeat it. He just said the challenge he had in the business was that he would sit in the audience listening to a leader to tell him to approach the business in a specific way. And for him, it felt like a violation of his own integrity. And then he was talking about products and challenges, but that's really the gist of it. And I felt uncomfortable doing that, right? Guess what?
Correct.
Guess what? The leaders didn't do it that way.
No.
I have not yet met with a leader who teaches a system, who uses that system themselves to recruit people.
Right.
Well, in all fairness, here's the challenge. I'm so comfortable and natural with people, I make friends, right? There's a real fear that could be taught. So I've got to find a way to teach a system so my other people can succeed in the business. I think it's a real burning desire to help people succeed. I don't think it's malicious. There's probably examples where it could have been. But people's intuition read it nonetheless as a violation of their own integrity, whether the person's intentions to have them work the system are good or not. That is the response. Stephen M. R. Covey wrote a book called The Speed of Trust, and he has the 4 pillars. Pillar number 1 is integrity. You walk your talk. 2 is intention. It's mutually beneficial. 3 is ability. And 4th is results, the 4 pillars of trust. And if we're violating this one over and over again, knowingly or not, we're in trouble. It's time for us to take the principles we're talking about and re-look at the way in which we are treating people. And I've had some people say, well, Dave, we can't stop down. Well, that was 2006 when they're on the bubble and you can't stop to breathe because you don't want to disturb anything. But a number of those companies aren't in business anymore because they didn't. And since we're having this challenge right now, we have an opportunity to be able to take a look and build this thing from the foundation back up again the way it was supposed to be built the first time, where we're honoring people and people are benefiting from the experience. How many times have new distributors said, I went to talk to them, and all they said is, tell me how much money you're making. It's the most common objection to someone showing up in that space out of integrity. They are showing up out of integrity, believing that it's fear-based, that I need to overcome this, I need to do this. They said this is how to do it, so I do it, and I violate my own integrity. That's the measurement I was talking about in self-esteem. When they question worth and worthiness and ability, they question their own belief system because they're starting to feel like they are lying to people, and it is violating their own worth at the deepest intrinsic level of a person's being. This is not just an idea. This is at the fiber of their soul. They're feeling like they're violating themselves by doing it. That's why they won't do it. This industry, this profession, is different than making a car or building a house. I'll give you the visual. A person's most intrinsic dreams and hopes for their life and their children. Making profit, system, structure. It is a dance between the two. This cannot trump this, nor can this trump this. Most powerful moment I can remember in the profession was sitting in Japan in a Japanese restaurant at 4 o'clock in the morning. We're still working. Sitting around a table eating Japanese barbecue, and across the table were two distributors, a new one and a sponsor. Not a recruiter, he was a sponsor. And I was watching them make an oath to each other. Half of this oath is made every time somebody comes in the business. The question is the other half. One was saying, I am turning over the fiduciary responsibility of my wife and my children to you. I'm trusting you with it. And I promise, for you taking that I will show up and do the work. That was the promise of the new distributor. The promise of the sponsor was, I take fiduciary responsibility for your wife and your children, and I will work by your side in the trenches until you're successful. They have a name for it. It's nenawashi. Nenawashi. It means to bind the roots. When they dig up a tree, they dig out far enough so that even those hair-like follicles are protected. Because every follicle, every root is valuable to an organization. It is bringing nutrients to an organization. So they bind all the roots. They call it nenawashi. Can you imagine if we took this posture where you don't bring somebody in the business unless you're going to work by their side, because it's been a little bit of recruit, next, recruit, next, recruit, next. We're not selling toilet paper. This isn't a transaction. It's are you ready to get started with me? It's an understanding that the profession has two very different hats. One is to find the people who could be blessed by this and then help them build an organization using those products in business. Two different hats. And some wear this one, and some do management control. But a leader, there's our definition, understands both. This is really where we are. I watch people feeling what Og felt in Scroll 9 when he said, I will act now. He says, I hunger for success. I thirst for happiness and peace of mind. These are your people. Lest I act, I will perish in a life of failure, misery, and sleepless nights. And some of the actions they need to take are to learn these principles, to get past these barriers, or they just get crashing into that wall. Og concluded with this: me, stepping back from my thought processes, which have threatened to imprison my future, I will command. And I will obey my own command. It is time for us to put our distributors back in the driver's seat of their life with a decision to want to engage in life like you do, so they can start to experience results and we can start to change the profession back to what it was supposed to be in the first place. Well, thanks everyone. It's been a privilege to be with you.